Hello, everyone. Let's
Hello.
let's wait for a couple of minutes. Okay, we actually have already a quorum, so we can start. Welcome, everyone. This is the session on data and processes. You will see that it's not only about climate data, but also beyond that. Please let me introduce you to the people who are going to be moderating, facilitating this session. Fanny Adloff, you can see her right there. She has a background in climate modeling and works as a scientific officer at the German Climate Computing Center. And we also have today with us Roger Bankers, who works at the Wageningen Environmental Research in the Netherlands on weather and climate impact assessments. My name is Angel Munoz. I'm with the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, and I'm co-leading with Paco the Climate Europe 2 project, and with Christian Paget this Work Package 2 and the Climate Europe 2 project. So we have a session today in which we'll be discussing, obviously, data and processes. So I'm going to start with a brief description of the why, the what, and the how. We have been already doing this, and we'll be conducting this work for a few more years for the Climate Europe 2 project. And then we will have a couple of other sessions in which we will need your very valuable interaction. I think that is very important at this point that you, if you want, use the chat to introduce briefly yourself and also mention your background. That will be very, very helpful. And you can also start typing questions, and we will be answering them as we go. We will have a discussion session, and people can write questions in the chat or just take the floor. But let me please start by giving you some context for this set of discussions that we're going to have. Perhaps it is important that we start by the definition of climate services. I think that we all know that Climate Europe 2 has to do with climate services. We already heard from Paco and others, what are the goals of the project. And because you have been participating in the different sessions, you know from the different angles what we are dealing with. But because there are so many different definitions for climate services, I'm going to use here one that I really like. That doesn't mean that the other ones are not as valid as this one, but you will see why we're doing this in this way right now. So climate services can be understood actually as the generation of climate information, but also its translation, not only in terms of the different languages that we speak, but especially in terms of a language that can be understood by the stakeholder. And by that, I mean we all. So again, it's not the language, the different languages that we speak as humans, is that for a particular demand that we have, the stakeholders need to be able to use that information generated. And if that information is not adequately transferred to the stakeholder, then we are also missing an important pillar or piece of this climate information. And perhaps the most important one is the use. So if I have a perfect forecast or a beautiful, amazing map of past rainfall, but no one is using it, so then it's not a climate service. That's the difference between a climate service and just climate information. This is climate information put to work. So why are we talking about this? Because we all, let me just move your faces over here, because we all require the best possible information and services in order to make the best decision. So this is not only for the health sector or the energy one or the private or the public, we are all stakeholders. So, there are many questions, but a couple of guiding questions to us are related to how to best identify this information that is key, that is needed to provide, to make the best decisions. And also, if we can standardize data and processes to guarantee not only the identification of the best services, but how to conduct the best, how to achieve the best set of decisions so we can have the best outcome possible. So these are obviously, questions that you can mention in a couple of seconds, but the answers take a lot of work, far more work than 5 years. So Climate Europe 2 is dealing with that. And in particular, our team, Work Package 2, that deals, as you already know, with data and processes, has a special set of tasks that we need to deal with in order to help the entire community of climate services in Europe and beyond to achieve the goals. So let me start in this slide to try to explain a couple of extra things about the why and the what, how one can see this process. It will be great that you have a certain label saying this is the best service or climate information or set of decisions that you might be able to take right now. That will be ideal. And right now, we maybe we can say partially have that. And in several cases, in several countries, especially in the developing world, we do not have that. So that automatically involves, as you can imagine, a set of processes related to certification and accreditation, and also to verification and validation. We have a lot of standards. We have several standards in the climate services arena, but we have a lot more of standards that have been developed outside our landscape of climate services. And we can learn a lot from those processes, and products are already out there in terms of standards, guidance documents, recommendations, et cetera, and see how we can actually apply that to climate services wherever we can apply it, because most probably we cannot standardize everything in the climate services landscape. And that leads to this framework for equitable standardization and support that we are dealing with, that we are co-developing, analyzing in Climate Europe 2. So it has to do with different types of methods for quality assurance and control, method for evaluation of effectiveness and performance, to enhance usability, and a wide variety of other methods that, for the sake of time, we're not going to mention here. So this is a very complex topic. There are a lot of climate services being developed out there, not only in Europe, but beyond. It has been growing exponentially, the number of climate services that we have. And as is natural, this organic growing needs to have at some point some control, some way to decide this is fit for purpose or not, and that is not trivial. So in our particular work package, we are dealing with data and processes, but there is no way we can work in isolation. We need the feedback and work horizontally with each one of the other work packages on this framework for standardization, on the business models, on the market development, on the policy support, and of course, with the community engagement and communication outreach and exploitation in order to keep advancing this developing analysis of the best standardization procedures, what works when and how and why, to keep supporting this equitable community of climate service in Europe and beyond, and to increase the uptake. Now, talking only about Work Package 2, you can identify 4 main tasks or branches that have to do with guaranteeing that the data that we use, not only climate data, because climate services has also a lot to do with socioeconomic data. So we're going to talk about the data that we use complies with a minimum set of requirements that we need to identify, and that in general are going to be different for the different climate services we deal with. We want traceability. We want to know where is this data or procedures coming from. So we already know, well, that has been already assured. There is some quality control there that we can use, or perhaps that is not completely needed, or we need to create that from scratch. We also need to deal with verification and uncertainty and risk. And there is a lot to do with uncertainty identification, quantification. How do you measure risk as uncertainty and risk? So this is a set of multiple tasks that we're trying to classify, multiple activities that we're trying to classify in those 4 branches that you can see there. So what do we want? And this is the last slide for my brief introduction, so we can start having interactions with you guys. What we want is to be able to build and cross this famous bridge between what we might call scientific development and the actual demand, the need in society. We want to be able to do that through climate services in the particular definition that I have cited today. Has to do with the generation, translation, transfer, and use of this information. And together, what we want is to enhance this support for an equitable community of climate services and to advance in terms of standardization processes for the climate services landscape. So this is the brief context presentation that we wanted to provide. And what we're going to do now is that we're going to play a little bit, and Fanny and Rodger are going to be facilitating and leading this section. I will be here also to support as needed, and actually I'm going to be transitioning now to Mentimeter. So while I do that, Fanny and Rodger, I don't know if you want to take the lead. I'm going to transition to...
Yes. Yes, so yeah, we will start focusing a bit on uncertainty as a natural link between stakeholder decisions, climate services, and the work we are doing. And Roger will explain you just briefly how to deal with Menti.
Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm sure you're familiar with Menti by now, but just in case, you can go there either by using your browser or by using your phone. If you use your phone, you could use the QR code that you see on the screen. Otherwise, you go to www.menti.com and then you have to fill in the codes. You see it on the screen, 68774217. And if you give me a minute, I will also put a link in the chat. And then let's get started.
Yes, so the first question, so as I said, related to uncertainty. What does uncertainty mean in your discipline? So if you could not write too long, maybe a couple of words, that would be great. And so we'll leave you a minute for this. And Roger, I just put the link on the chats.
Excellent. We're starting to see the cloud. Very nice.
Yeah, we can see that arrows appears several times. Quite interesting, yeah.
We see the word error indeed. We also see words like variability, spread of data.
Range of possible, yeah.
Some people related to probability.
Yeah.
Confidence intervals. Yes. Yeah. So we see different takes on the same words, really.
Very nice. It seems that we're getting convergence there. Should we wait for a few more seconds, or should we transition? Wow, this is very nice.
We have 25 answers, if I see it correctly. So there may still be a few people who want to put in their words.
Interesting answer, not being sure, but future.
Yeah, and then black box. I really like that one.
Yes.
Very good.
And I also see incomplete information or need for more information. That's also an interesting take on the idea of uncertainty.
Yeah. An error at the right in the middle of the cloud, and errors and range. Yep.
Yeah.
Very good.
So
Okay.
we will have time later on for in the discussion time to comment a bit on this question.
Very good. So are you okay, Fanny and Rutger, if I transition to the second slide?
That's good, yeah.
How do you quantify uncertainty? So we have some varying ideas about what uncertainty means. But if we think about climate services and climate data, how would we describe uncertainty or quantify if possible?
So this one is very similar to the previous one, but concrete measures related to what you already mentioned in the previous set of answers could be enlightening as answers here. Very good.
So we see a word cloud again, and the word ensembles comes up in the middle, which of course is one established way of quantifying uncertainty, especially if you think about climate modeling. But we see some other things as well. I see expert judgments. I think I saw, yeah, it's also there. Some people say you need to give a range.
An error as well, quite dynamic.
Yeah, if for those in the audience who are like less familiar with the technical wording, do not fear. Just include what is very important to us. Even perhaps more important to hear from the general audience, less technical audience, how do you quantify uncertainty? So please do not fear that you need to be technically not enough, or if the words are right or not. That is not the important part here. So please go ahead. I like storylines. You might know the person who wrote that one.
Plus,
yes.
minus is a good one.
Yes, scenarios are also there. Employing scenarios, someone wrote.
Yeah, exactly. That's a nice one.
Yeah, that's really good. Again, we will have time in the discussion later on to develop a bit on this.
Very good. So should we wait or transition to the next one? We still have a few other questions to pick your mind and get your feedback.
Yeah, I think we can move.
Okay.
Maybe just to react to Renate, she asked a question in the chat: what does ensemble mean in this context? Maybe we'll elaborate a bit more during the discussion. What do you think, Angel? Because yeah, it's more scientific aspects.
Yeah, we can do that. Let's try to acquire your wisdom in this quick game with Mentimeter, and then we can have a full discussion. So no problem.
So
yes,
next
sorry.
question. Yeah, sorry, Fanny. Please go ahead.
No, yeah, how do you communicate uncertainty?
So some ideas coming in, depending on the audience, of course, is a very important principle.
Yes.
And then we see maps, we see provide a range.
With great difficulty. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Training and education, yeah, that's a interesting take on it, I guess. Which implies that you need to train your users in understanding the uncertainty.
Oh, more are coming now. Yeah. So we have been focusing on uncertainty so far because it's a natural way, or we thought that for the time that we have, it's a natural way to link the stakeholders' decision-making process with the climate services, this set of issues we have been, or topics we have been discussing, standardization and supporting the community. So you can see that these questions are all related, but still different enough, and are very important in order to set the stage for the discussion that we're going to have. Very nice. I'm going to take a screenshot. Nice. Very good.
So shall we move to the next one?
Excellent. Done. Yes.
So we know uncertainty is there. So how are uncertainty measures used or managed for decision-making purposes?
Not an easy one, huh?
It's not an easy one, I think. I think that's well, in the wrong way is the first one that comes up. I hope that's not the case.
Yeah, I need to say that
always,
that a version of this question was suggested by Sayoa from Work Package 1 in order to link the previous questions. So I, acknowledging the co-authorship outside the Work Package 2 here and modify by Work Package 2 a little bit.
But it means that our work is meaningful, right?
Yeah, exactly. Justify errors. Hardly ever. Oh, I love this one. There's a lot of I like the tone.
And we have in the right way now.
Good. I mean, it's an important issue. I mean, it's not just about communicating the uncertainty. In the end, we want the users of the information to be able to use that somehow or take account of it in their decision making. So if you have any experiences on that or ideas, please let us know. So planning for worst case is indeed one thing you could do, depending on the context, of course, worst case scenarios.
And Mario in the chat says that, yeah, using maps is not a joke. No, we never thought about it. I mean, we didn't think it was a joke, huh?
No, and I agree that it's very often ignored. Someone will ignore, and it's and they aren't. Yeah, mostly no. Yeah, there is a consensus, it seems, in our audience and this set of the state of the art regarding the use of uncertainty, understanding uncertainty. So we better if we don't even talk right now. We can do that later in the discussion session on propagation of uncertainty, because that's even worse. By my gut feeling.
By gut feeling, yeah. No, it's quite interesting, yeah.
It is true, yeah, that is true.
I think it's seen as a difficult thing, and that is not done often enough.
Yeah.
That's the gist of at least some of the answers.
It's not straightforward, indeed.
Indeed. So I'm taking screenshots here and there, as you probably saw. Very good. Okay, it seems that we are getting convergence and stabilize. Yes. Ignore in the middle. Good. Okay. Should we go to the next one, or
yes.
should we do it for a little bit?
Yes.
Okay.
Funny.
Yes, sorry. How important it is that your products have so either standards, guidance, docs, or recommendation, and then use also for traceability. The third on accessibility and interoperability, and the first one uncertainty assessment, and then for each of these you answer exactly. Yeah, you just put the cursor either close to the no, I don't care, or on the right hand side you have it's a must. So you just put it where you think it belongs, and yeah, we'll see the average results.
Now we have a Gaussian distribution, is that? Maybe? Not anymore?
No, we have a comment from Anna on the chat. So decision makers work with the wide range of uncertainties. So it may be a missing link to be better explored if climate information uncertainties do not seem to be incorporated into the decision-making process.
Yeah.
I think we'll
agree.
discuss this. Yeah.
We will definitely discuss that because we all, absolutely all, live and work with uncertainty every day. You know, what I'm going to wear today, is it going to rain today? Should I marry this person or not? So, you know, it points to a link, maybe a extra work that we need to do in order to convey this information in climate services. But we will discuss this, as Fanny mentioned, in a few minutes, actually. Now it's almost noon. And we are getting towards the end of our Menti session, acquiring data from you and your wisdom. There seems to be convergence now.
Yes, everything is important by the looks of it. The product should all have standards guidance, all have traceability, accessibility, and uncertainty assessment.
Yeah, very good.
Yes.
And if there are people, again, if we need to explain and clarify any of these or any other word or topic, please do include that in the chat, because we're going to be doing that very soon, or right now if it's needed. Okay, should I go to the next one?
Yes.
Yes, please.
And this is the last one.
Yeah. Can you list examples of problems caused by the lack of standards in data processes? Perhaps something from your own experience. Someone has submitted an answer. Okay, the first answer is no. Yeah, different data formats and processing. That's, I think most people working in the field will know by heart.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yes, reproducing data, that's also a problem, I guess.
Again, reuse and usability. Difficulty to compare also, huh?
Inconsistencies, you know, there's a clear message there.
Credibility is also quite an important one. Huh?
I think it's, you know, as everyone can expect, pretty natural how this maps into the tasks and the goals in Work Package 2 and, you know, the rest of Climate Europe 2 for sure. So yeah, we're starting to get several. So I can go down. Yeah. So for the audience who know less about the technicalities, you know, when we talk about fair, like in this one here, it's not only fair, it goes a little bit beyond that, but do not worry about that. Okay, we will.
I think there's an interesting comment from Ari Laus. He says, yeah, the pool results reflect the community here, which is not necessarily representative of the many actors operating on the market. And that's correct. I think here we have quite a broad, a lot of people with scientific background. And yeah, I think we should also take this into account.
Correct. Yeah. Don't worry. Do not fear. We are not writing a paper using these results. It will be heavily biased. So we know. We are very aware. So, but it's very, very important, obviously, to have that. And also to invite those that are like working outside this pretty technical, I don't know, realm to have no fear including their answers. Audience confusion, yes. Incomparability of data. Very good. Excellent. And we're actually, you know, right on time. This is the perfect timing. Should we wait for a couple of more seconds, minutes?
Yeah, I think we had enough time, don't you think? We could move to give time for the discussion. And we have a comment from Miko. Problems depends on what people think is a problem and what some call development work.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It has to do a little bit too with that demand that I was mentioning at the very beginning, you know. is what really defines, at least to me, is what really defines climate services, and all the iterations, of course, between demand and supply, but it starts with the demand. Very good. Okay, so incompatible data formats, incompatibility of data, understanding, audience confusion. I think that we got convergence.
Yeah.
Not a lot of new answers there. Okay, so we will have this acquire wisdom from you, and we can use it in our next discussion, but definitely, not enough to us to assume that we all here have complete knowledge of what's going on out there. It is, very important that we're getting this set of answers from you, and even considering the technical set of answers. So it's good that we have a consensus on that too. Very good. So Fanny, Rutger, what should we do? Should I? Oh, there's a new one.
Yeah, I think we could move then to the broader discussion. Very
good. Yeah, and we're right on time because we were planning to end exactly at 12:05. So this is good. Okay, very good. So let me just go back and let's start now so this was the Mentimeter, and now let's start the discussion. So front slide. Very good. So we have seen, and through those different questions, that there are important. Can you see my screen? It doesn't seem.
Yes, you haven't. It's not like slideshow mode, but we can see it. Yes.
Yeah, but why? Let me do something like this. Give me 1 second. Sorry. So while I do that, so you can see that we got a variety of start from current slide. Okay, now it's working. So we got a variety of topics that are not only obviously related to uncertainty, but are closely related to each one of these tasks that we have identified and that you guys have confirmed, along with additional. Okay, slideshow, current one. I don't understand why it doesn't do it. Well, sorry. For the sake of time, is it okay if we do this? It looks
yes, that's good. That's
okay.
Good.
So we wanted to present to you some of these questions. You will see that there is some replication. There is questions that are closely related to the ones that we already asked you, and those were a little bit of motivational questions for this discussion. So the idea is that we all participate. So if you want, you can type your questions in the chat, and I will be monitoring that. But also, please take the floor, raise your hand, and we will follow the order in which you raise your hand in order to give you, the mic and the screen.
And shall we start with the first question, which is thinking again about this issue of uncertainty and about how we can quantify it and also communicate it. Earlier on, I think there was a question about the ensembles. That's, of course, is one way of quantifying some of the uncertainty, especially in climate modeling, also in weather forecasting, where you run the model multiple times, and every time you get a somewhat different answer, or you look at multiple models.
Yeah.
So you don't use a single answer, but you produce multiple answers, and you look at how large the spread is in those answers. Of course, that's one way of quantifying some of the uncertainty, but I carefully say some of the uncertainty because you can, of course, question whether that's all of the uncertainty, and we can also think about other sources of uncertainty or deeper uncertainties. Are there any questions on this or ideas?
Anyone?
I think there was also a comment on the way to depict or to represent it, like rather putting us on the map and not necessarily only on a time series or so on. Yeah, I think this is quite important, especially for local, local mitigation purposes or more local action. Anna?
Mhm.
Just to help get the conversation started. I'm coming into this quite new, so I only just started working for Climax project in March, and I'm not a climate services expert, so I really just tried to join in, that's all. I hope it's okay. I was just really alarmed to see how negative the responses were to some of those questions, because from my perspective, uncertainties show the knowledge that we have, and we obviously have different sources of uncertainties, and we know about them. We know, for most, at least a lot of the time, we do know where some of these uncertainties are coming from. And I think it's important to communicate that this is valuable information, not negative information, and it shows a range of possible outcomes. So perhaps breaking this barrier of like, there's one answer, one best direction or whatever, I think that wouldn't really necessarily be useful for decision makers or policy makers. And so I think it's interesting to explore this idea of possible outcomes and how these may evolve. So the need to continuously update and track and understand where we're going in a particular case. And also we need very clear definitions of what we talk about with uncertainties and how they're expressed. So agreed upon, for example, confidence statements or probabilities. And for example, you mentioned deep uncertainty. So I'm coming from the IPCC assessment, just finishing up now. And we use this term deep uncertainty with very specific, definition. It's really where the processes themselves are not yet understood. And so it'd be really important to differentiate that kind of information from the more standardized type of uncertainty information we're talking about. And just a final comment, I'm interested in finding out more about how storylines can be used to better communicate and interact with stakeholders around uncertainties.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really, really good points, Anna. Anyone wants to?
I think Mark has his hand raised. Yes.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
My name's Mark Payne. I'm the scientific coordinator of the Danish National Climate Atlas here in Copenhagen. And one of the points that I can see that's sort of also going through the 4 questions that you have there is around traceability and essentially accountability for the information that we're being put out. One of the things we've experienced in Denmark is that our climate atlas is now being archived by the National Archives in Denmark, with the goal of it still being existing in 200 or 300 years. And that's a little bit scary, that to have that degree of accountability and the fact that we actually need to, it's not just something that we're pushing out. There is actual active decisions being made on top of this. And I certainly feel that the traceability question is not really something that has received anywhere near as much attention as is warranted, given the value and the importance of the decisions that have been made on top of some of this data. So anything I think that we can do to improve our work towards quality assurance and traceability is going to be a big benefit in the long term for the credibility of what we're delivering.
Yeah, I completely agree. We also talk about provenance. It's like it's more and more common. A lot of people are already working on that as I don't know, umbrella for additional quality control assurance, the lineage of the data, which I think we is the word that we use in one of the slides in order to avoid the technical provenance wording, but we completely agree. And this is important for all type of data and also processes, methods, not only climate data. I can see that a lot of us here have been like more exposed maybe to work with climate data than with socioeconomic data, but climate services definitely require far more than the climate side of things. So I completely agree, Mark. Thank you very much. We have now Alessandro.
Yeah, just a comment on what was just said. Yeah, we definitely have a task that focuses on this aspect. It's just that from my past experience, I noticed that this problem has been always considered like the elephant in the room that at some point someone will solve. And even though there are several actions taken from institutions based on their sensibility towards the topic, there is still some reluctance in agreeing upon standards to communicate this information to the outside world. So everyone is relying on some assumptions on coverage and details around the information that should be stored in the provenance. And I hope that in this project, we can basically highlight which are the priorities that we should take into account to make it structural and usable. So +1 to the comment of Mark.
Right. Anyone else? So while we get someone else, these points, would you concur? I'm also taking notes. You can see, the three of us are actually taking notes, and probably some of you too, because we will report this tomorrow at the end of the meeting. But these last several points are related to several of these questions that we have here. For example, how important is the quality control and assurance, and the lineage? Question number 3 has to do with that provenance. That well, now we're using the word because we're trying to explain, how that relates to everything else. But it's very important. It seems stupid, but how we guarantee that is important. Someone else mentioned at some point also interoperability, I think in the Menti at least, or compatibility or interconnection to other data sets. And also was mentioned this topic of different formats. If we have different formats in terms of climate data, imagine what exists in the socioeconomic realm, and sometimes the complications that there are in order to connect these different types of data. And we're not talking only about predictions, we're talking also about past and present, I'm going to call those monitoring services. So that's a big issue that we need to address, and that is intertwined to this issue of quantification of the different types of uncertainty in communication.
Yeah, we have a comment by Carmen on this. Carmen, would you like to take the floor briefly?
Sure. I'm not a climate scientist. Question number 4 really got my attention because what I usually find is that socioeconomic data is usually more scarce than climate data, although many people won't believe that. Maybe you don't have the scale that you're willing to, or the quality control, or if you're trying to compare countries or regions, it's impossible because they're not standardized, things like that. That was it. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and would you guys concur on? It seems to me that more and more of the demand for climate services has to do not only with traditional climate services, but now that we're talking about socioeconomic, there is a lot of requests for even traditional crop yield prediction or monitoring, but well beyond that, things like undernutrition or, I don't know, human migration. So this is also part of what we are seeing and what we need to deal with, not only within Climate Europe 2 and in Europe, but well beyond that. And of course, it involves everything that we're discussing regarding climate data and processes and standards. But it goes well beyond that when we talk about human migration or infant undernutrition in Africa or whatever that is. So it's good. Should we quickly address question number 4 before we forget the third one?
Yeah, I was about to suggest the same. Yeah. So what are the obstacles you encounter when accessing or using the climate or socio-economic data? So we already had one answer. for the socio-economic part, it's really hard to find. It seems so quite interesting. Any other want to pick up on this?
I don't know how many social scientists or, you know, like general public are here participating, but something that I know our colleagues from the social sciences would say is that there is also tends to be an incompatibility in the way we talk and we think about things in the natural sciences and the social sciences. So it's not only about availability of data, but the type of the approaches that we use in social sciences to report the data tends to have like some compatibility issues with the way we require it when, I don't know, making predictions or maps. Not always, but definitely that's what I hear. For example, when we talk to Vernon in Work Package 5 and many others. But I'm sure that you here also have that experience, and that there are other types of obstacles. So if you can discuss that, it will be great also for our notes. Yeah,
it seems to be in the chat consensus about the lack of availability of socioeconomic data. So are there any other kind of obstacles that some of you might have encountered when trying to access or use data? No, it's all fine.
So nobody has any obstacles when using climate data.
Yeah, I'm impressed and surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think we organized a number of trainings across Europe some time ago, which was specific on the Copernicus climate data. And I think one thing that often came back is that it's actually not easy to work with climate data. You need to have specific expertise. So people who are not familiar with that, they sometimes underestimate how much technical skills you need to deal with all these data that come out of it. And of course, that could also be considered as a problem in itself. You know, if climate data are only manageable by a certain type of people who have certain skills, then that all raises all sorts of questions about equity and so on. So Mark has raised a hand. Maybe you want to comment something or share another obstacle you've encountered?
I was basically going to make the same point, that it's not just a question of the technical expertise, but also of the technical infrastructure. We have just started trying to make a copy of our Danish National Climate Atlas in collaboration with the Ghana Meteorological Institute. And their infrastructure is a massive bottleneck. Their bandwidth is 10 megabits and their storage space is a few terabytes. So working with climate data direct from ESGF or from Copernicus is simply not directly feasible for them. So there's also massive infrastructure challenges as well to working with this data. Take a big server and a big pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. May I quickly ask a little bit more about that? So Mika, what do you mean? Can you repeat the stakeholders and the location? Because in my experience, this is the everyday issue in developing countries. You know, Latin America, Caribbean, Africa, Asia. But sorry if I missed this part. Are you also saying that at a different level, probably, but we also have this issue in Europe?
I'd say it's also a challenge even in Europe, because it essentially requires specialized hardware. It requires when you're working with the raw level of data, it requires more storage than you have on a standard laptop. So it's not something that a well-educated university graduate can just dig into. It requires large server storages and large bandwidths, as well as also the technical capacity to work with these very user-unfriendly formats.
Yeah.
You can say that ESGF and Copernicus are great tools, but it takes many years to learn how to use them.
Got it. Thank you. Sorry, Fanny, that I interrupted you.
Yeah, I think now they try to develop also like more the interactive platform, you know, especially on the CDS. But obviously this is still a bit limited. But you're right. Yeah, I think this is really a fair comment. Shall we go to Miko? And maybe I'd like also to pick up on Milana comment, but I'm not sure about the time. Yeah.
Miko, yeah.
I want to just quickly say that I don't agree. The CDS just passed 100,000 registered users, so and so who have downloaded and been successful in using that data. So we are too critical here, and I'm not totally against what Mark was saying, but I would say that it's still not too much, and there's so much knowledge, courses, training, whatever out there. And for many years already, that I would say that the use of climate data is anyway one of the biggest thing out there happening already. And that's just looking at the statistics of the CDS. So the Chinese are even more using it when us in Europe. We are second, then there's the States, then there's all around the world there are users, even in Africa. It's not like Africa is not using these data sets. They are downloading to that place as well. So let's not be too kind of like we still need a lot of on that front. I think we can always improve it everywhere. Everything can always be improved, but I wouldn't say that that's a key problem now. It of course needs kind of special know-how, but I think we are pushing every year out new students who are actually very good at this. At least when we recruit at FMI new people, I'm always so amazed that, wow, they come from school and they can all of this. And I needed a lot of time to learn it at the job. So that's why I would say that this landscape is much better when we kind of like see it here. We should be a little kind of like more positive on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Miko.
So we have 5 minutes left. Should we just pick up Milana's comment?
Yeah, and let's say 2 more minutes here, and I can summarize things in 3 minutes, and then I'm sure that they are gonna send us back automatically to the main. So 2 more minutes here, and yeah, and I will jump into the summary.
Yes. So Milana, do you want to speak out, or should I just read your comment?
I can speak. It's not a problem. It's well, it's not just technical knowledge. It's also language that we speak in different domains. It's sometimes really hard to pick up, you know, from somebody from social sciences to pick up, you know, when people who've been there are using so many acronyms and things. It can be a very big obstacle.
Yeah. So all around the vocabularies and so on. Yeah, so it comes back also to interoperability, and that we need to harmonize a bit things to be able to speak somehow the same language, among different research fields.
Yeah. And we have one more minute. So Milana, so we have Charlotte mentioned an important obstacle also about awareness. So it seems that we have been like, you know, like ranging the spectrum of the different things we need to deal with. So thank you very much. I don't know, Charlotte, if you want to say something.
I was just placing my perspective from the idea of a user, and well, one of the ways we learn is from seeing how other people have done things. So maybe some stories of how people have benefited from using the climate services for specific situations would be really useful to raise awareness.
Absolutely, I agree. So Fanny, Rutger, and everyone else, I think that we are running out of time. This has been excellent. This has been like very, very interesting. And actually, I think that we might need like more time at some point and more awareness and papers on everything that we have been discussing. Is it okay if I try to summarize, you know, what we have been discussing quickly? So we prepare a quick slide dealing with the more salient points that we have seen on this working for years now on this topic. But obviously that was more of a placeholder that is not including directly what we have been mentioning. So besides those more salient points, and please do tell us if you disagree. Obviously there are more things to be included there, but we have actually a wide variety of things that we have been including. So for example, the language and the use of acronyms, and very often we live in silos that Milana just mentioned. Also these issues with the technical infrastructure. There are limitations, but also there are a lot of successes, not only in Europe but well beyond. The importance of paying attention to the types of uncertainty and how to communicate it, and there is a lot still that needs to be done, because like entities like IPCC, as Anna was explaining, have been dealing with this for a while. So it seems that there is a lot there that we still might need to communicate. Mark talked about the traceability, also Carmen and others about the availability of socioeconomic data and the issues that we have in terms of bridging or translating or compatibility issues. And I think, yeah, so I already got Mika's on the success on actually using the data, and Charles on the awareness. So most probably I'm missing something, but I took some notes and just trying to summarize that right now. And we're 1 minute off. So is there anything else that we should say here right now? This is not the only space that we're going to have. In 6 months, we will have another Webstival, and we can actually keep interacting during these few days and via email and so on. Any major issue, salient issue that needs to be included in the report? Okay. Fanny, Rutger, anything else to add?
No, I think it's good.
Very good.
Thanks a lot for being in this session.
Thank you very
I
much.
think it was a good discussion.
It's always good to get different perspectives. So it was really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and we got a lot of people, 61 people in this session. So thank you very much. Very good. So I guess that we now go back to we have now the lunch break, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe it's worth going back to the main session if there's some information.
Correct. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to stop sharing, and thank you, everyone. And let's go there, leave the room then. Okay, see you in the other one.